ideas, so you want to ask other people about their opinions. So you could say, for example, what do you reckon? Reckon is another verb we use in English for think. What do you reckon? Or what do you think about that? What do you think about that? What's your opinion? All right, so these are very important things. It's explaining, clarifying, agreeing, disagreeing, giving opinions, asking opinions. Very important. You use the language every day. All right, so that's the language for this lesson, and I look forward to seeing you in the next. Bye.
Hello and welcome back to Business Talk.
Hi there.
Well, today we're going to talk about giving good presentations in English.
Yes, giving a presentation can be a frightening prospect, but if you understand the psychology behind the business skill, it really is quite simple.
Like most business skills, it's all about communication and using the right kind of language in an effective way, right?
That's right.
But I still think it's an important moment. Obviously, you want to make a good impression, and the fear of boring your listeners can make you very nervous.
Well, in the Anglo-Saxon world, making a good impression usually means demonstrating your ability in teamwork, that you're a good member to have on the team.
Teamwork is all about organisation, and it implies everyone working together. Therefore, the language you use should involve everyone. And of course, you don't want to bore or lose anyone along the way, so keep it simple.
Yes. Organization, language, and simplicity are three very important factors when planning a presentation. First, organize what you want to say.
And is there some kind of winning structure for a good presentation?
Definitely. You should always start with a personal introduction, then the subject of your presentation and its purpose. It's a good idea to briefly outline the main points of the presentation and then talk about each point in more detail. At the end, give a short summary of what you've said before your conclusion, and there you go.
You make it sound so simple.
Well, the aim of this structure is in fact to simplify your task. And remember, the #1 rule for giving a good presentation in English is KISS, K-I-S-S. Keep it short and simple.
How about giving an example of a presentation?
Okay, well, we don't really have time for a whole presentation, but I'll give you an example of the kind of language and structure I mean. Good morning. I'm Eric Brown, and I'm in charge of quality control here at the plant. This morning, I'd like to talk about a problem we had last week. My aim is to stop this problem happening again. First, I'm going to give you some background information, then I'll fill you in on the details, and finally, we'll look at some possible solutions. So, first of all, let's look at the background.
And here, Eric would give some background information about the problem, so everyone has a clear picture.
Now we're going to try to understand exactly what happened last week.
Here, Eric would talk about the problem we had last week.
And finally, why don't we have a look at some possible solutions?
At which point, Eric would talk about the various solutions to the problem in turn, before saying,
let me sum up.
Where Eric would briefly summarise the different points he's made during the presentation and move on to the conclusion, starting...
So, now shall we try to draw some conclusions? Thank you for your attention, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask.
That was very precise and to the point. Now, it's difficult to remember everything you want to say unless you learn it all by heart, especially if you're nervous. So it's a good idea to have some notes with you.
Of course, you shouldn't read the whole presentation. That could get quite boring, but you do want to get off to a good start, so perhaps writing your introduction word for word is advisable. And then just have the opening sentences of each part of the presentation so you have an outline to follow.
Yes, in case you get lost, you can easily get back on track.
That's right. And speak slowly and clearly. Obviously, try to use emphasis and pauses to highlight the important points.
So, KISS is the key to a good presentation. Keep it short and simple.
And the three fundamental aspects to keep in mind are organization, language, and simplicity. Today, most people use PowerPoint to deliver their presentations. We can't talk about how to use PowerPoint now. Remember to get the language right, and your PowerPoint presentation will be fine.
Good advice. Our time's up, so I'm afraid we have to say goodbye. See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Let's look more closely at Eric's presentation and those 3 important factors to bear in mind when planning a presentation: organisation, language, and simplicity. So, the first thing to do is organise what you want to say and give your presentation a clear structure. Let's look at a basic outline for a presentation. Start with a brief personal introduction so everyone knows who you are. Then introduce the subject and purpose of your presentation. Briefly outline the main points so everyone knows what you will be talking about, and then treat each point in order. It's a good idea to give a short summary of all the points at the end. And finally, a conclusion to close your presentation. Personal introduction. Introduce subject and purpose. Outline the main points. Point 1, point 2, point 3, summary, conclusion. And what about the language? Remember KISS, K-I-S-S. Keep it short and simple. Simplicity is essential in every aspect of the presentation, in its organisation and the language we use. Short, well-structured sentences that mark the beginning of each part of the presentation are helpful to keep you on track and keep your listeners' attention. Did you notice in Eric's presentation, he marked the start of each new section of the presentation very clearly? Let's look at the language he used and how each point corresponds to the outline we've just seen. I'd like to talk about a problem we had last week. My aim is to stop this problem happening again. First, I'm going to give you some background information, then I'll fill you in on the details, and finally we'll look at some possible solutions. So first of all, let's look at the background. Now we're going to try to understand exactly what happened last week, and finally, why don't we have a look at some possible solutions? Let me sum up. So, now shall we try to draw some conclusions? Notice how the beginning of each section is clearly marked. And remember, team spirit is important. As with brainstorming, it's important that everyone listening feels part of a team. So avoid using I too much because it detaches you, the speaker, from the group. Try to find other ways of structuring your ideas so that everyone feels included.